Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever in the world it is that you are. Welcome once more to another live stream of Alexandra Mayers Live, page by page reading and commentary of the modern English version of the Bible. So, so I made it back today. excuse me, excuse me there. I made it back today despite my coughing and hacking and whatnot. I don't know what is going on with the air quality where I am right now, um, but it's not good. So, anyways, pray for me that I will be able to continue to breathe so that I can get through Deuteronomy chapter 16, the Passover. This chapter of the Bible goes over particulars regarding the Passover. So, let's go ahead and get started, and I will provide my commentary as I see fit. Thank you. The Passover, Deuteronomy chapter 16. Observe the month of Aviv and keep the Passover to the Lord your God. For in the month of Aviv, the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night. Therefore, you must sacrifice the Passover to the Lord your God from the flock or the herd, in the place where the Lord shall choose to place his name. You must not eat leavened bread with it. For 7 days you must eat unleavened bread, the bread of affliction. For you came out of the land of Egypt in a hurry, so that you may remember all the days of your life, the day you came out of the land of Egypt. Okay, so according to the Lord God, the entity, the being that brought this particular group of people out of Egypt, it's very important, it seems, for this God to consistently remind them, hey, I'm the one that saved you, so you have to obey me. Now, is that necessarily the right way to go about trying to get people to do what you want them to do by constantly holding a certain amount of leverage over their head? Just saying. Okay. And I'm pretty frank when it comes to my commentary on the Bible. But there is a lot of debate as to whether or not this part of the Bible really is referring to the Lord being God, the ultimate creator, the intelligent designer, or was it a liaison who's calling themselves the Lord between God and man? Something I've thought about. I personally think it's the latter. The reason I think that is, for one thing, the use of the term Lord instead of God in this portion of the Bible, but also just what I went over, constantly using the leverage of, well, I'm the one that saved you. You know, I just don't think that that's the best way to go about things, but that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, and I probably am wrong because I'm just a human being. I'm not God. Let's keep going. There must not be any leavened bread seen with you within all your borders for 7 days, nor may any of the meat which you sacrificed in the evening on the first day remain overnight until morning. You may not sacrifice the Passover within any of your gates that the Lord your God has given you, but at the place where the Lord your God chooses to place his name, there you shall sacrifice the Passover in the evening at sunset, at the time that you came out of Egypt. Again, you got that reminder. You shall roast and eat it in the place where the Lord your God will choose. And you must return in the morning and go to your tents. For 6 days you must eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a solemn assembly to the Lord your God. You must do no work on that day, the Feast of Weeks. All right, that's the next part. And just some more brief commentary. There's been an ongoing debate within the United States, within the African American community. when it comes to teaching African American youth about the history of slavery. Some people say, oh, it's good for young African American Black children to know about their roots within the United States. It's important that they know so that the situation doesn't happen again. And then there's other people who are like, well, if you teach young people that they're the descendants of recent slavery, then they're going to feel lesser than possibly their peers, or maybe they'll feel the opposite. So there's just a lot of debate around that, constantly having leverage over somebody because you feel that you've done something for them. But it's right here in the Bible. You have the Lord, who, it's debatable, was that God or not, who was doing this. Was this one of God's helpers? Was it one of the highest choir of angels? Who was it that was constantly holding that over people's heads? But maybe it needed to be held over their head because you had to have some way to get people to do what you wanted them to do at that time. Because when they were wandering through that desert, they definitely were complaining the whole time. So you have not only a group of people that at one point in time was enslaved, but you have a group of people that are consistent complainers. That's always been my criticism about the chosen people within these books of the Bible. All the complaining. All the complaining. I guess I grew up in a household to where I was taught not to complain so much. But then again, sometimes when I don't complain, people don't know when I'm having a hard time, do they? And sometimes people, I find, are surprised to learn that I'm having a hard time because I tend not to complain. Perhaps my spiritual lesson in all this is to complain more. I don't know. But anyway, the Feast of Weeks. You must count 7 weeks for yourself. Begin counting the 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle from the standing grain. You must keep the Feast of Weeks to the Lord your God with a tribute of a free will offering from your hand, which you must give to the Lord your God in proportion to how much the Lord your God has blessed you. You shall rejoice before the Lord your God, your son, you, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, the Levite who is within your gates, the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow, who are all among you, in the place where the Lord your God has chosen to place his name. You must remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and you must be careful to observe these statutes. Again, at the end, you have to remember that you were a slave in Egypt. Well, okay, I'm going to go with it because, well, I often do remember that my ancestors were indeed, unfortunately, slaves in the United States of America. And it was that dark time in history that strengthened my genetics, improved my family lineage, to tell you the truth. Some people wonder, Alexandra Mayers, how are you such a fabulous woman? Because I'm a descendant of slaves. And we survived a lot of shit. If you can survive slavery, you can survive anything. So I guess that was my spiritual lesson for the day. But let's keep going. The Feast of Tabernacles. You shall observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days after you have gathered in your threshing floor and your winepress. And you shall rejoice in your feast. You, your son, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, the Levite, the foreigner, the orphan, the widow, who are within your gates. You are to celebrate the festival for 7 days to the Lord your God in the place where the Lord will choose, because the Lord your God will bless you in all your produce and in all the works of your hands. Therefore, you will indeed rejoice. 3 times a year, all your males must appear before the Lord your God in the place where he will choose, at the feast of unleavened bread, at the Feast of Weeks, and at the Feast of Tabernacles. And they must not appear before the Lord empty. Every man must give as he is able, in proportion to the blessing of the Lord your God, which he has given you. So, in other words, God's saying, look, I'm going to take care of y'all. And yes, I'm going to give you many hardships, but you will be blessed and I will take good care of you. Always keeping that fear within the people, huh, God? I and I do. I've always liked um the early version of God in the Bible. And after we do get through the Bible over here, we are going to go into a lot of the books that were omitted from the modern English version of the Bible, um, or at least books that were theoretically omitted. Some people say, oh, well, they were just summarized and put into other books and chapters. Maybe, maybe. But I think that'll be a fun exploration. We probably won't get to that until next year, considering the rate that I'm moving at, which is a snail's pace. But we'll get there at some point. At some point. Judges. You must appoint judges and officers in all your gates, which the Lord your God gives you throughout your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You must not pervert judgment, nor show partiality. You must not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and perverts the words of righteous. You must follow that which is altogether just, so that you may live and inherit the land which the Lord your God is giving you. Okay. Well, this makes me wonder a little bit about my choice to accept donations as of recently. As of recent, I've made it clear when it comes to quite a few of my projects that yes, I am accepting donations. Have I received any large donations yet? No, I haven't. But some people have mistakenly labeled me as being a sort of a judge, considering some of my projects. And some of my projects, yes, indeed, they do provide my commentary, which some might deem as judgmental. But the question is, if I were to receive donations, would my thoughts and commentary drift in a certain direction? I don't know. I have no idea. Why? Well, because I haven't received any large amounts of money. If I ever do, I will let y'all know. All right. Idolatry forbidden. Ooh, this is important. You must not plant for yourself an Asherah of any trees near the altar of the Lord your God, which you make for yourself. You shall not set up for yourself any image which the Lord your God hates. So you better not create any images of anything that God doesn't like. And God's been pretty detailed as to what God likes versus what God doesn't like. And we will get more into that tomorrow as we go into Deuteronomy chapter 17. So thank you, everyone, for joining me today. If you did, for me, it's an accomplishment simply to remember to do this, to get on here to do this, and to complete yet another page by page reading and commentary of the Bible. This little project does mean a lot to me. It really makes me feel good throughout the day. And it does keep me on a good track when it comes to my life goals. And I encourage all of you out there, find something that you can put in your daily routine that keeps you on track and out of trouble. Trouble. You know, when I think about times in my life where I found myself going down the wrong path and finding myself in trouble, it tends to have been times in my life to where I felt that whatever it was I was doing was not enough to get me by. And when I think back at each time in my life where I had that feeling, I shouldn't have had that feeling. And I thought, why did I have those feelings? Why did I think I couldn't do it? And it really did have to do with not having enough external encouragement from people who should have been more observant of the details of my life, who should have been more involved in my life, and who should have definitely been more encouraging when it came to giving me positive feedback, positive thought, positive insight. So, what have I learned over the years? I have to give it to myself. Because when you don't necessarily come from a situation that is overly nurturing or overly encouraging, you just have to dig deep and find that energy within yourself to propel yourself forward. And that is what I do. You know, if we're lucky, we do find somebody or people rather that we can really rely on in our lifetimes, to where we don't feel like we have to or we're obligated to, but just because we want to. So if you have that in your life, realize that you are blessed. And if you don't have it, that's okay, because tomorrow's a new day and you never know what God is going to give you. Take care. Have a good one. Bye bye.